Busy Friday morning here. I hope you guys have some big-time weekend plans. A big week in college football. Big NFL Sunday coming up as well. So a lot to get to here within the hour. We want you commenting, reacting in terms of what your thoughts are about the topics that I discuss here, and we'll throw up the comments throughout the broadcast as we see fit. So with that, let's get into the opening rant here. Like I said, somebody is getting fired in college football or the NFL. I'm not sure which person it's going to be, but it's going to be somebody. And I'm going to go through 4 names here who I feel just may not make it out of the weekend. Let's start off with number 4, candidate to get fired, Mike Riley, head coach for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Look, there's a new AD in Nebraska right now. Sean Eichhorst got fired. Bill Moose is now the athletic director for Nebraska. May very well want a clean slate. And what really stuck out to me in terms of Nebraska's season, talking about football here, that loss to Northern Illinois in September was absolutely embarrassing, absolutely pathetic, and I think actually set the tone for the rest of the season. So the Cornhuskers right now are 3-4. Pretty much not going to get a bowl game. I don't think. There's no way they get to 6 wins with the way in which they're playing football right now. Mike Riley clearly losing control of this team. I feel that he is certainly going to see a fair share of rumors this weekend, if indeed the Nebraska Cornhuskers lose again, of him getting fired. And there's the buyout that you always have to consider. So it's $6.6 million buyout for Mike Riley, which is actually not as high as another coach that we will get to later, my number 1 candidate to get fired after this weekend. But I think the most significant thing is the changeover in Nebraska right now. And, you know, a lot of times, actually, I'm going to follow the same logic with another team, a professional team. But a lot of times when you have a new AD or a new GM, they want a new slate. They want to move on to a new chapter, if you will. And Mike Riley, part of the old guard, the old chapter. And Nebraska has struggled mightily, by the way, with recruiting. I mean, it's been tough for them to get players to go up there and play for this team because, 1, they're not playing well right now. 2, they're getting a lot of bad PR because of the changes that are going on in the front office, if you will. So, Mike Riley, candidate number 1, or actually I should say number 4, we'll count you down in terms of the likelihood that this is going to happen. So number 4 compared to number 1, obviously number 4 less likely to get fired than my number 1 candidate. So Mike Riley there at number 4. How about number 3? Hugh Jackson, part of the LVP list here on Chat Sports, the least valuable player / coach list, if you will. Hugh Jackson, coach for the Cleveland Browns. 1-22 record as a coach. He's got a quarterback carousel that's getting absolutely ridiculous. In fact, Harris Rubenstein, my producer, said it on NFL Daily last night. Sound the clown music, the fair music, the carnival music, and that's what's going on in Cleveland at this juncture. So DeShone Kizer was the starter, then he wasn't the starter, then it was Kevin Hogan who was named the starter, then it was Cody Kessler for a little bit, and now it's back to DeShone Kizer. And DeShone Kizer, by the way, partying on Friday nights, not as bad as, say, Rob Gronkowski or Johnny Manziel, but the guy's not playing good football, and he's going out on Friday nights, and people are capturing it. Probably not a good look. I'm not saying it's fair or not, but at the end of the day, it's all about your image in some of these positions in media, in professional sports, etc. So DeShone Kizer, clearly not learning that, although he will be starting for the Cleveland Browns this week in London as they take on the Minnesota Vikings. But Hugh Jackson here, I thought that he was going to bring a no-nonsense kind of approach to Cleveland, where he really relished in Cincinnati. I mean, I thought he was a pretty good offensive coordinator. Got a little too cute sometimes with some of the plays with Andy Dalton in that offense. But coming over to Cleveland, it has not been really a seamless transition. And look, I mean, the Cleveland Browns have a lot of problems. They have a lot of problems in the secondary, on the outside at wide receiver, at running back right now. Duke Johnson hasn't really panned out. Isaiah Crowell is supposed to be that guy at the running back position. That has not really transpired in the way in which the Cleveland Browns had hoped. And then the quarterbacks, I mean, you can always just harp on the quarterbacks. Yes, it's an absolute train wreck. And a lot of the blame has to go on Hugh Jackson because of the way in which he is handling these situations. Finally, left tackle Joe Thomas, one of the premier pass protectors in the NFL, gone for the year with a torn triceps. Really tough story to see. And that is only going to make matters worse for Deshaun Kaiser, worse for Hugh Jackson, and worse for the Cleveland Browns organization as they continue to lose games. I'm not so sure they're going to win a game this year, ladies and gentlemen, as we did have that weigh-in for you folks at home. What coach is getting fired after this weekend? Perhaps I didn't name one that is sticking out in your head. Or maybe I will name one that you are thinking about right now. So definitely throw in those comments. We'll be showing them throughout the broadcast. We're at that point, folks, where the tide begins to turn. The front office begins to get impatient. People start to lose their jobs. It's not like every day where you have the Phoenix Suns situation where a coach gets fired after like 3 or 4 games. In the NFL and in college football, usually it's at that midway point, and that's where we're at right now. Patience begins to wear thin. In fact, especially if it was already thin to begin the season, like with this upcoming coach that I'm talking about, which I'll get to in a second. But for Hugh Jackson, things are looking rough for him. So we got Mike Riley, Nebraska. We have Hugh Jackson, the Cleveland Browns. Coach candidate number 2 to get fired after this weekend, Chuck Pagano, head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. I will preface this discussion with saying that I am a big fan of Chuck. I think he was a fantastic defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. I love how he battled back from cancer and came back and coached a playoff game for the Indianapolis Colts a few years back. But at the end of the day, sometimes coaching situations begin to get stale. And this could be one of those situations. And this is also comparable to the Mike Riley deal where there's a new AD in Nebraska. Well, there's a new GM in Indianapolis. Ryan Grigson is no more. It's Chris Ballard now at the general manager position. Perhaps a new regime wants a new change. So the recent 27-0 shutout loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars was very significant in this regard. The Indianapolis Star reported something that is very, very interesting. So I'll read the quote for you guys. Quote, speculation about the job status of the Colts' 6-year coach reached a fever pitch after Indianapolis's embarrassing showing Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. A fever pitch. And for those who don't know, and I didn't know last night, I actually had to look up what the heck fever pitch meant. A moment of the turn, if you will, a moment of excitement, of impatience that there will be some sort of change going on. So Chuck Pagano of the Colts certainly is someone that we need to monitor going forward. He is my candidate number 2 to get fired after this weekend. And by the way, the Colts play the Cincinnati Bengals, a pretty darn good defense that probably will shut out the Colts back-to-back. Like, it's something that certainly can happen, and that very well could be the last straw for Chuck Pagano in the Indianapolis Colts. Okay, so Pagano's at number 2. Like we said, we want the comments flowing in. Who's getting fired across the NFL, across college football after this weekend? Jason chiming in. Ken Norton Jr., the defensive coordinator for the Oakland Raiders. You know, Ken, that's actually a very interesting point. The Oakland Raiders have been very disappointing so far this year. Even in that win against the Kansas City Chiefs, they still gave up 30 points to Alex Smith. Good offense, sure, but a Kansas City Chiefs team that, you can hold them to 17, 20 points without amazing defense. It's not a team that's going to light you up week in and week out, the Kansas City Chiefs. So Ken Norton Jr., very possible. I mean, outside of Khalil Mack, that front is not getting it done for Oakland. That secondary is a big concern, especially at the corner position. Wide receivers are having their way with Oakland's corners right now. It's a good comment there by Jason about Ken Norton Jr. We'll see if he can make it through as we go along in the season. Butch Jones has to go, according to Jeremy. You know, Jeremy, you're a smart guy, and I'll say that because my number 1 candidate to get fired after this weekend, Butch Jones, head coach of the Tennessee Vols. This guy and this team have lost 3 straight games in the SEC by a margin of 101-16. They looked putrid, hapless, lost against Alabama a week ago. Now they head to Lexington tomorrow to take on the Kentucky Wildcats. And if they lose that game, it is all over for Butch Jones. It's done. Goodbye. He's getting fired on Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, Monday morning, whatever it is. But he is my number one candidate to lose a job. Now, the buyout for Butch Jones, $8 million. And there's actually a clause in the contract, I'll read it to you folks, that requires Jones not only to seek a new job, but also report his quarterly income to Tennessee through the end of the deal. And if he doesn't report that quarterly income, the university's obligation to continue paying liquidated damages to the coach shall cease. So, even if Butch Jones does get fired, he's got to move his butt to get a new job and then report quarterly to UT. And if he doesn't, then Tennessee can essentially no longer pay him. Like, they have the ability to just no longer pay him. By the way, in the last 32 meetings between Tennessee and Kentucky, the Wildcats have won just once. And if Butch Jones makes that number 2 tomorrow, see you later. He's done for the Tennessee Volunteers. Okay, like I said, folks, somebody's getting fired this weekend. It's going to be one of those 4 guys. Guarantee it. That's the opening rant. All right, we're going to hit a quick break here on the Cam Rogers Show. Coming up on the other side, we have Meg McDonald of Sooner TV. We're talking a little OU, little Big 12, little college football playoffs. Stick around. It's the Cam Rogers Show.